Ladies and gentlemen, it does appear that the FTC has done some pretty crazy shit to the gacha space in the past couple of days. What we're seeing over here is that the Genshin Impact developer Hoyoverse is now being forced to pay a $20 million fine and ban the sale of currency to players under 16 without parental consent, while also, and I think this is the big one, this is going to be the big one, they will also need to provide a way to buy items up front, among many other changes. And so we've got this follow-up article by Bloomberg following the whole situation that the FTC was ready to settle with Hoyoverse over some of the concerns when it comes to Genshin Impact. And now this is the update posted just an hour ago. And from what we're seeing over here, these developers have been forced to pay $20 million while also, and I think this is really the big one, they're prohibited from selling loot boxes, which I imagine are when you get an intertwined fate and you spend it on a limited banner. I think that's what a loot box is. Every single intertwined fate you sell on a banner. You're prohibited from selling them using virtual currency without providing an option for consumers to purchase them directly with real money. And so this is the thing. This thing over here, this is one of the most game-changing things we have ever seen to the gacha space, potentially. What this means is that there might not be a limited character banner unless you have the option of directly buying the limited character from the store for $1 amount. It means that every single limited character could potentially now be purchasable directly for real money. And let's think about it this way, ladies and gentlemen. Let's think about it this way. When you go ahead and you spend about $100, right, on Genshin Impact. Let's just look up the Genshin Impact store. If we're just looking at the price of Genesis crystals and imagine that these euros are actually in dollars, they're basically worth the same amount at this point anyways, whatever. For about $100 USD, you'll get around 6,480 crystals. And that translates to roughly, you know, without the bonus, right? Roughly around 40 pulls, if not a little bit more. What this means is that now either the Genesis crystals are going to be replaced for pulls or going to be replaced with dollars entirely, and you'll be able to directly buy pulls with money, or the characters will actually have to be purchasable in game. What I'm assuming is that because other companies, other games like EA, you know, EA with FIFA Soccer, you're not allowed to, or you're not able to basically purchase a character for a set amount of money. You still have to purchase the loot boxes themselves, open them, and then hope you get the character. I do believe that what this means is that Genesis crystals are probably just going to be removed from the game entirely. And you're going to go ahead and for $1 price, right? Probably with a discount, you'll be able to go ahead and purchase an intertwined fate. Because you can think about it this way. Each intertwined fate is basically a loot box. You have a chance of getting a 4-star unit. You have a chance of getting a 5-star unit, and of course, you have a chance of getting a 3-star weapon piece of trash. Translate that to every other gacha game on the market, well, that's basically how it's going to work. And so, this is kind of like how the situation is going to get a little bit weird, a little bit dicey. Who knows what this is going to do to things like the monthly pass? Who knows what this is going to do to things like all of those outfits in the store, things like that? Who knows what's going to happen to existing Genesis crystals that people have that they're able to use to purchase things like those EXP packs, so on and so forth. And who knows what this is going to do to every other game. What we're not necessarily seeing here is anything about the loot box contents. And so that's going to be really, really important to keep in mind. This might just mean that every single thing that we see in the store, instead of having to buy the Genesis crystals first and then spend them, right, on things like the gift shop, spend them on things like the character outfits, all of those items that you would see previously in these categories is simply going to be purchasable in game. And what you're going to notice, right, is that games like Wuthering Waves already actually have this. And let me go ahead and pull it up. All right. So in games like Wuthering Waves, you're currently able to buy bundles like these directly from the store for $1 amount, right? Things like the Vault Forging Collection, where you get a combination of both Astrite and Forging Tides. You have things like the Vault Tide Selection, which is just, you know, 5 of each Tide as well as some Astrites. I do believe that this is likely going to be the future for all of the different packs that you're seeing across the stores, right? You're also not going to be able to purchase things like the Weekly Traveler's XP Aid, the Tube Aid, all of these things. they're instead of showing an amount in Lunite, right, the premium currency, you're instead probably going to be seeing dollar amounts for these instead. That is my inclination when it comes to this. Or obviously it could be characters and weapons directly purchasable, but that would kind of defeat the point of a gacha game, right? And so this is all coming into play for a pretty simple reason. And that's because little dumb kids don't actually know how much they're spending. Little dumb kids are going ahead, swiping mommy or daddy's credit card, and they're seeing 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 Genesis crystals or Lunite pop up on their page. And they're like, oh, awesome. And there's a disconnection, obviously, right? Between the amount that you're spending and how much currency you're actually getting. And so by being able to see the direct dollar amount that every single pull is costing, the direct dollar amount that every single package in the store actually costs, that probably is going to lead to some better financial decision making, right? What's easier to understand? 40 pulls being 64,000 Genesis crystals or 40 pulls being $100? You tell me, right? One's obviously a lot more clear to understand than the other. And I think that's where this whole sort of like deceptive practices, this whole lawsuit in the first place is actually originating from. And so with that in mind, it's pretty clear why they're doing this, what's actually going on. These lines over here that we're seeing about prohibited from misrepresenting loot box odds, prices, and features, I don't think that's necessarily too relevant, right? Because they've always been upfront about the rates. Maybe on things like the Genshin weapon banner, it hasn't been as clear. They're required to disclose loot box odds and exchange rates for multi-tiered versatile currency. They already have what the odds are, and they already know what the exchange rates are for things like Primo Gems. I don't think Primo Gems are going to change at all. Same thing with Astrite, same thing with Stellar Jades. I think that's all going to stay exactly the same. But the thing is, they might just get rid of the premium currency entirely and just have, again, all of those different objects, all those different things available in the store. They might be able to translate existing Lunite into a dollar amount. Like, let's say your 500 Lunite is going to get converted into like $6 in the store, and then you can just use that as like a credit when you're purchasing things in the future. Imagine it's like a gift card balance, something like that. The Battle Pass, for example, is something that you're going to be purchasing directly with money. You do that in Wuthering Waves. And obviously, right, this seems like a lot of it is around the protection of that younger audience that has access to mommy and daddy's credit card, and they're going ahead and they're spending without the full knowledge of what they're actually spending on. And so the way that I would view this and the context that I would have when it comes to this is it doesn't look like the way that they're doing business is necessarily going to change too much. You know, obviously there is the option that they could just sell the limited characters in the stores and the limited weapons. I don't think they have to necessarily go that far because other games don't need to do that, but it still obviously is something that could very well happen. However, things like after pull currency, you know, where you pull and then you're able to redeem that for additional pulls, I don't think that's going to be changed either. I think it's really just the premium currency that has to go in this situation. And so this is obviously something that could potentially shake up the gacha space a lot, depending on the actions that the different companies take. But I think they're going to get away with doing the bare minimum possible here. Obviously, after getting dinged a little bit with that $20 million fine, but obviously that's a drop in the bucket. That's a drop in the bucket for a company like Hoyoverse. And so it turns out that being the first in the space, right? A game like Genshin Impact being the first in the space can suck a little bit because potentially any game that's using premium currency in this way could have faced a similar sort of situation. So with that, let me know if this has clarified any of the crazy news we've been seeing recently. Obviously, it can be very scary or funny, depending on which side of the tribalism war you want, to see Hoyoverse under threat by the FTC, but it doesn't seem like this is going to be as big of a deal as some people might have originally thought. So with that, let me know what you all think. Peace out.